Hello to everyone online. Happy New Year to all of you. We're so glad you're tuning in with us. We've got some folks outside in that crisp, cool air and almost full house in here. So look at us go. We're ready for the new year, huh? I didn't get to see who was new. Are any of you new? I see some faces that look kind of new. Yeah, welcome. Yeah, good. Here we are. So, it's New Year's. Are you setting resolutions? Making resolutions? Nah. Are you setting goals? Mixed, kind of mixed. Maybe you're recommitting yourself to something like a spiritual practice or a healthy practice of some kind. Maybe this is your year. You've determined, this is the year I'm making that dream come true. Or perhaps you're going to serve in some new way. Who knows what's yet to unfold or what you in your process have come to already. Some of us don't do this stuff at all in reflecting at the end of the year, and some of us just do it in our minds a little bit. And then I'm going to encourage us to recognize, or what I believe is it becomes more real when we write it down. When we begin to write down what our intention is, our dream is, our vision is, and then even more, further still, if we make a covenant with our spirit about what exactly this is that we're about. Have you ever done that? Heard about a covenant? Yeah, making such a thing? All right, well, today I'm going to encourage you to consider that possibility. Last week we dwelled in possibility. We're still dwelling in possibility, right? So just consider the possibility as we go a little further into this journey and this suggestion. Sometimes it works the other way, that the covenant comes to you, that Spirit tells you what the covenant is going to be with you. What I'm talking about is kind of initiating it ourselves, but it can work in both directions. And that's what happened to Noah. The covenant came to Noah. God came to Noah and said to Noah, as he emerges, remember Noah, he emerges from the ark, from the great flood. You remember putting the 2x2, all the animals in the ark and his family, and the great flood upon the earth. So it's all over now. The door is open. And then he has this conversation with God, and God says this about the covenant. I now establish my covenant with you and with your descendants and with every living creature, the birds, the livestock, the wild animals, all those that came on the ark with you. And never again will all life be destroyed by the waters of a flood. Now think about where Noah is now. Noah and his family and all these beings are coming back onto a fresh palette, if you will. It's a new earth, essentially. They're stepping out into a new earth and meant to repopulate this earth, to begin again. So it's truly like a place of standing in that fresh newness and that beginning space, right? Where all is, as we often imagine the new year can be for us. And then God goes on to say that there is a sign for this covenant. Do you know what the sign is? Anybody know? The rainbow. The rainbow is the sign. And he specifically says, or she specifically says, God of no gender says, or all genders says, the rainbow will be a sign of the covenant I am making between me and you and every living creature, a covenant for all generations to come. Has anybody seen a rainbow so far in 2026? Yes. Aren't they glorious? We saw one I don't know, we can't remember now, was it the first or the third, but sometime in the first few days of the new year, it was the biggest, most vibrant rainbow I have ever seen in my life. Yeah, some of you are nodding. You too saw this, and we saw it like in that direction. And Brenly was outside pointing. I was inside, and I was like, what is she pointing at? And I go outside. You could see the ends. It seemed like you could see the ends of the rainbow. I was really tempted to go see if there was a pot of gold there. But, metaphysically, there was a pot of gold there in the awe and the wonder of it all, in the sign, in the covenant of the remembrance of the hope that rainbow offers us. The beauty and the hope and the awe and the wonder that come to us in those moments where most of us, when we see one, go, oh, a rainbow, right? And then we want to point and show other people because we want to make the connection over that wondrous and awesome sight, that thing that brings forth again in us that sense of beauty and wonder of the earth and the possibilities, the magic of what is available to us, the possibilities that we truly can dwell in. So very much like Noah stands on the outside of the ark and has this conversation with his God, we stand on the cusp of a new year and a new open door in a new space emerging into a new earth. We can imagine that for ourselves. It's not same old, same old. It's maybe the same things we do, but now infused with the possibilities of what might yet come. We stand in a place where we have washed away what we no longer need. The rains have washed away. The burning bowl has let it go. Whatever it is that you've done to say, whatever I'm shaking off from the previous year or the previous years or up until now, the things I no longer need that I will not be carrying over into the new year, the things that no longer serve me, I've now left those behind. And like the rains have washed all that stuff away, the sun is shining. The air is crisp and fresh. Everything around us is greening. Everything in nature is echoing to us and showing us that we stand in a new space, that we stand in a light-flooded doorway of possibility as we enter this new year. And if we can place our minds in that kind of space of hope and possibility, of expecting rainbows, expecting signs of the covenant that is available to us to say, time to start again, fresh and new, full of possibilities and new life. That's the place in which we stand now. That's the place in which Noah stood so long ago when he had this conversation. So what is a covenant? Let's take a moment to look at what that is. A covenant is an important part of the three Abrahamic traditions anyway, and that would be Christians and Jews and Muslims, right, or those religions. It's also in the Baha'i religion, and I would venture to guess in every religion on the planet, there's some sense of covenant, whether it's overt or not, but there's a sense of we make a covenant with our spirit. And it's actually in common law as well, which is kind of interesting, I find. The covenant carries more spiritual weightiness than an agreement or a contract. In common law, it's described as a solemn promise to engage in a specified action, which is actually what we're talking about from a spiritual standpoint. And in legalese, some of the legalese is actually quite spiritual when you hear it. It's called an affirmative covenant in the U.S. Well, we like that in Unity, right? We're all about affirmative prayer. This idea that in affirmative prayer, in the same way as this affirmative covenant, is this idea that I claim something, I claim some truth, I speak some truth, or I write some truth, and then I have a sense that I'm making it firm, terra firma, right? Bringing it to earth. It's heaven to earth. I'm bringing forth the divine idea that is coming through me, and I'm planting it upon the earth in a physicalized way. And that might be through word, spoken word, but even more so, maybe through written word. So now I have an actual document. And there's this sense of this solemn promise now is written. In history, and still even today, in England in particular, where it began, there was always a seal to distinguish a covenant from a contract. And if it was a sealed covenant, it held more legal weight than just a plain old contract because it was considered a solemn promise. It came from the heart. It was a thing that somebody said earnestly and deliberately, I will do this action. And it matters. And it carried that. So that we have this idea of affirmative covenant, and then there's also another term in common law, implied covenant of good faith. These sound like spiritual terms, don't they? Good faith, affirmative, this seal, the solemn promise. And so all of this, whether your attorney or attorneys recognize this or not, has this sort of spiritual weightiness to it. And in short, whether we're looking at it from that common law perspective or spiritual law perspective, A covenant comes down to this. It is a sacred spiritual agreement made between you and your spirit. We are standing here today because our co-founders, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, wrote a covenant with Spirit. For many of us, that's really, I think probably technically that's the start of the Unity movement. We often go back a few years before when they started publishing a magazine called Modern Thought. But really, it got serious when they sat down and they wrote a covenant together. Because you can read that covenant, we'll look at it in a minute. You can look at that covenant, and hold on a second, Laura. You can read it and you can know that there was this determination, there was this solemn promise that was being made. They're dedicating everything they have. Before that, long before that, Myrtle was a teacher, and then they had children, and Charles was a real estate agent and a businessman, and then they were kind of doing a little spirituality on the side. But they got serious when they started healing with these principles, completely healing things that no doctor thought was possible to heal. And they went into meditation and they healed their bodies, and they started teaching other people how to do this, because you couldn't help but shout it from the rooftops when your whole body is healed through meditation. You want to share that, right? You want to share that with everybody. This is how you do it. This is what works. And so as our movement opened up from that place of healing, and they began writing, and they created this magazine, and they started to create the society, what was called the Society of Silent Help, now called Silent Unity, this prayer ministry. And they started to say, you know what? This is it. We are dedicating ourselves to this. How will we be paid? God knows. But we just gotta do this thing. So let's look at what their 1892 covenant was. And you can see in the handwriting, it says dedication and covenant. And it reads like this: we, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, husband and wife, hereby dedicate ourselves, our time, our money, all that we have, and all that we expect to have, to the Spirit of truth, and through it to the Society of Silent Unity. It being understood and agreed that the said Spirit of truth shall render unto us an equivalent for this dedication in peace of mind, health of body, wisdom, understanding, love, life, and an abundant supply of all things necessary to meet our every want without making any of these the object of our existence. And to seal it, they say, in the presence of the conscious mind of Christ Jesus, the 7th day of December, AD 1892, signed Charles Fillmore and Myrtle Fillmore. When I read this, it moves me, and sometimes I get chills. Do you feel that? Because it's why we're here. It's because these two people were so dedicated to the idea, the divine idea that came through them, the healing experience that they had, that they wanted to make a movement for all people to begin to understand these new thoughts, these new practices, this new way of being. Maybe they weren't so new, but formulated in a whole understanding now and accessible to people in a whole new way. And that my life, and I bet yours too, would be drastically different had I never found Unity. How many people feel like Unity has positively impacted your life? It's okay if you don't want to raise your hand, but look around for a minute. Keep your hands up. Look around for a minute if you truly believe that. Most of the people in this room have been, some of you doubly and waving, have been positively impacted in your life by this movement. That is profound. If you think about the fact that people all around the world right now are meeting on Sunday mornings in their various configurations and ways under the banner of unity because these two people had a covenant with their spirit and they wrote it down and they kept it in good faith. And it is an opportunity for us to look individually into our own hearts and say, what is my covenant with Spirit? And this is something bigger than a resolution, bigger than a goal. It's bigger even than a vision in a way. It's connected to a vision, but it makes the vision real. It makes the vision, it's on paper. It's my sacred covenant, my solemn promise with myself and my spirit, with the innermost part of my being. This is what I'm up to. This is the specified action I am doing in order to be in this partnership with Spirit. And I'm going to claim what Spirit's going to give me in return so that I can be supported. Now, notice in Charles and Fillmore's, they name, right, what they're going to give. They're giving everything, basically, to Spirit, all that we have, to the Spirit of truth, all our time, all our money, all our energy, all our talent, basically everything we have to give, we're given to this. We're given to this thing, right? And it's understood that we will receive in return. But this is not, it sounds transactional. It sounds contractual, but it's not exactly that. There's a nuance to this that's very different. And what it is they say it in the disclaimer. So they say first, we're going to receive peace of mind, health of body, wisdom, understanding, love, life, and abundant supply to meet our every want. But then they add something that's really important. They say that we aren't making these things, the receiving of these things, the object of our existence. So in other words, we expect to receive. We claim that we will receive. We claim that we will be supported in every way because we are guided to do this. We know that the Spirit's going to, in good faith, we understand that we will be completely supported, that we have the faith to know that as we step out, everything we need will be there. But we're not stuck on the receivership. This is not a deal breaker. You hear that? So that's what they're saying. We're not making this the object of our existence because it's not like we're not doing it. Look, Spirit, we're doing this, and we're claiming you're going to support us in doing this, but it's not a deal breaker if we don't receive peace of mind, health of body, love, life, understanding, whatever it is, or our every want, right? So they're not stuck on the materialism or even the spiritual qualities that they're claiming. They're saying, I'm giving. I'm in the spiritual law of circulation, and I'm giving, understanding that I receive as I give. But I'm not stuck on saying, I'm going to give, and you better give back, or I'm not giving. You know what I'm saying? So it's a very different kind of way of approaching it. So when we understand the law of circulation, we really need to understand this, that it's about giving. It's like I give, I open, I'm generous, I'm flowing because I know that my source is ever flowing. It never stops. So when I stand in my source, there's no limit. And so I'm not in the physical world. I'm not in the common law thought of transaction. I'm not in that space that says, I give and then I receive. And well, I'm not really receiving that much, so I'm not going to give much more. No, it's not that mindset. It's a mindset that says, I will not make this the object of my existence. However, I do claim and I do allow myself to say, I will be supported. I will be healthy. I will be abundant. I will have understanding and wisdom and love. Yes, God, all of it. Bring it on. Because I'm serious about the solemn promise I am making. And you have a solemn promise in your heart and your soul that's just dying to get out on paper, isn't it? There's something that you want to get out of this space that you've been carrying because it's so sacred, it's so special, it's so solemn. Maybe you've been locking it away. But I'm telling you, 2026 is your year. Put it on paper. Make a sacred, solemn promise, a covenant with your Spirit. And we're going to have an opportunity to get started on that today if you feel so inspired. So so that's the Fillmore's covenant. And then there's this guy named Eric Butterworth. Anybody ever hear of that guy? Yeah, a lot of you have. So Reverend Eric Butterworth was a Unity minister, and he's so well known because he was so prolific. He wrote so many books. We teach them today. Seeing Bob often teaches Discover the Power Within You. There's many other books of his that we have taught here or have in our bookstore or library. And he was also really a very well received, very popular speaker. So he would pack the house in New York City, during the days he was speaking as well. And he personally knew Charles Fillmore. So he was influenced by Fillmore in a very direct way. He said things like, Fillmore would say often, we often think we're demonstrating truth. We'll use these words, we're going to demonstrate truth. And Fillmore would say, that's not really the way it works. Truth demonstrates itself. And so it's again putting us in that place of understanding that the receivership is that place that says, I'm open, I'm surrendered, I'm trusting, I'm in faith. And then the energy comes, the love comes, the health comes, whatever it is that we need comes because we're in that kind of space. So Fillmore is saying, you don't have to, it's not so much will and effort that demonstrates truth. It's truth demonstrating itself and you being a vessel that allows it. It's a different perspective, isn't it? It's definitely a counter-cultural kind of perspective. In our culture, it's do, make it happen. We're all out there, kind of like cheering each other on. More effort, more work, more time, bigger to-do lists. It's a badge of honor to be busy, And it's like, gosh, aren't we tired of that? I am exhausted with that, It's just like, I don't want to live that way. I don't want the busy badge. No, thank you. I want the surrendered badge. I want the open-handed badge, the you are a vessel of God badge. I'm after that one. And I like that seal right on my covenant too. How about you? So it's like, claim it. Claim what you want. Claim how you want to live, how you want to be, how you want to experience life. When you get up and move through your day, don't you want to feel the flow of God's energy? And you have, these interactions with each other in your relationships, and you want the right words to come so that you can really be with your intent of love and connection, and that you want the right energy to come through that just flushes through your body, anything that doesn't look like health and wholeness, so that you can have that kind of energy and upliftment throughout your day to do the things that ought to be done by you. Yeah, that's what we're up to. So back to Eric Butterworth for a moment. He was so inspired by the Fillmores having a covenant that he wrote his own too. And you can see the influence of his covenant on all that he produced for our movement. So here's a little excerpt of his. I am the master of my life and its circumstances. I am the master of my life and its circumstances. That alone is powerful. It means I'm not blown around by the winds of life, right? I take a stance here. It's not about, it sounds like control, but it's not exactly about control, I don't think. It's about a recognition that I'm not just going to get battered about by the circumstances of life. I'm going to master them. I'm going to master my life. I pledge myself to begin each and every day of my life with a time of recentering of consciousness in the divine flow within. And I expect, Eric says, a ceaseless flow of health, of abundance, of fulfillment, and a continuity of creative ideas. And he certainly had a continuity of creative ideas, and they benefit us. But not just us in unity, beyond. And this is the thing about these covenants. They're not just in a insular space. We don't know what kind of ripple effect our work will have. Oprah? Anybody know Oprah? She says the most influential book on her theology was Discover the Power Within You by Eric Butterworth. Now think about all the people she has influenced throughout the world. That's a ripple effect of a covenant made and kept. That's how powerful this can be. So really want to encourage us, if you're not somebody who does this kind of stuff, I don't do this, I don't write stuff down, try it. Open yourself to a new possibility, because I think there is power. That term we say, money sitting on the table, there's power sitting on the table for you. And by power, I mean spiritual power. And by spiritual power, I mean all the goodies that come with spiritual power: health and abundance and financial freedom and connection and love and so on. Wisdom, whatever it is that you want to experience, you claim it. You get to claim it. It's your covenant. So would you like to start to create one of these? All right, let's take a nice deep breath and move into the heart space. And we'll just take these two aspects of our covenant one at a time. Let's begin with opening ourselves up to the divine presence to ask, what is my covenant? What is my promise? What actions am I taking in this relationship with my spirit? What is it that I am committing myself to? Here and now, and moving forward. We'll just take a moment in the silence just to dive in a little deeper and see if there's anything here, anything to begin our covenant. This is what I wish to promise. And as something comes, you may want to write, just perhaps at this point, just a few words to remind you when you come back. What is it that I am committing to? Making a solemn promise to myself and to the spirit of my being. And just knowing that whatever notes you've jotted down, you can return to. But let's go to the other part of this covenant. What am I claiming from Spirit as my support to make this covenant even a greater possibility of coming to fruition for me? What is it that I want in return or as a part of the support of my dedication? We'll just take another moment in the silence to let that really drop in. And then again, perhaps making a note, just could be just a few words so you remember of what you're claiming that Spirit is offering you as a part of your dedication. And if you have time, you might want to write a sentence or two in each of these sections. And just knowing you can come back to this project and flush it out and finalize it and seal it and sign it, however you wish to make it a formalized covenant for you. Maybe something you want to frame or have near you throughout the year so you can be reminded of this solemn promise, this covenant of action that you have put forth. And so once you complete your covenant, where will you keep it? That is a question, right? Maybe it is some of the places I just mentioned. I'm wondering if you happen to have an ark God's pact with Noah really started with the ark. He was guided to build an ark, right, to begin with. And then, as I mentioned, his name metaphysically means rest. And so he rested in that ark through the storms. And then, of course, he comes forth with this covenant afterwards. And there also is another reference to the Ark of the Covenant. Have you heard of the Ark of the Covenant in the scriptures? Yeah, so Moses receives on Mount Sinai the 10 Commandments, right? And they're written on stone tablets. And then he's guided to make this wooden box, which ends up being a very ornate wooden box. And the Jews then carry this with them everywhere they go. It's called the Ark of the Covenant, and it's the Holy of Holies. So in that sacred box is the covenant, the stone tablets, the spiritual law, but also in there is a pot of a golden pot of manna. Remember when the Israelites are in the desert and manna comes from heaven to feed them? And so there's a golden pot of that spiritual food that fed them miraculously through that time. And there's also a rod. Moses' brother Aaron had a rod, a walking stick rod, that actually sprouted new buds. And so it's a symbol of new life. So in this Ark of the Covenant that is considered so sacred, you can't touch the actual box. You have to just carry it on the handles. They carry this through the desert and everywhere they go because it's like almost carrying God with you, right? But essentially it's carrying spiritual law and spiritual food and new life, those representations. And did you know that you don't need to build an ark? Because you've already got one. Your very body temple is the Ark of the Covenant. Catholics said that Mother Mary was the new Ark of the Covenant. And then, of course, Jesus came. And then it became an understanding as we keep evolving that the Ark of the Covenant is the human body. And so it's you who carries your covenant. Charles Fillmore put it this way in The Revealing Word. He metaphysically describes the Ark of the Covenant. He says, the Ark of the Covenant represents the original spark of divinity in each human being. It is a sacred and a holy thing. The original spark of divinity, he says, occupies the most holy place in your body temple, and must be cared for with great devotion. Otherwise, the spiritual forces are scattered. And so it's another way of saying, just like the covenant itself, the covenant gathers up the spiritual forces. It focuses us. It allows us to claim and to say and to speak our solemn promise in a way that stops all the scattering. It allows us to gather up all of that and to say, this is the direction in which I am walking. This is what I am about now. And I expect and claim these things to be supported along the way. So for most of us, that Ark of the Covenant may be the heart, maybe specifically found in the heart, maybe the solar plexus. These two are where those twin powers live, love and wisdom. And so both of these are kind of at work in the outpicturing, the enactment of the spiritual law, if you will, of our covenant. And the spiritual food is all that we are given, right? The sustenance that comes. And the rod of budding, the new life, is a representation of the new life that you are walking, that you are living, that every step of that walk is a bud of new life, new possibility. That's the journey we can be on together in 2026. Pretty potent, wouldn't you say? Pretty powerful if we really put our minds and our hearts to this. Imagine what might happen in our community if even half of us, or even a quarter of us, or I don't know how many, it doesn't matter, it's not about math. If some of us do this, imagine what might start happening here in our lives and in our community as a whole. And what if we all did it? Look out, Spirit, right? Look out. Who knows what we could create together? God knows. And we are making a pact as we become clearer about what it is that our part is, and then keep that promise. Keep your promise. If you end up writing a covenant this week and it's something you want to share with all of us, just email it to office@Unity of Walnut Creek. You can say on there, I only want to share this with Kristen, or I'd love to share this with the whole community. And maybe we can hear some of these next week and keep this alive in our community as we move forward in this brand new, wonderful, powerful, glorious, wonder-filled year together. So let's make these covenants and keep them in good faith. I invite you to affirm it with me if this is your intention. If you're like, I'm out, I'm not into this, don't feel forced to say the affirmation, okay? But it's an invitation to really do this and to affirm it together. So together, I create and keep my affirmative covenant in good faith. It is signed, sealed, and delivered, and so it is.